Welcome to Ksok Uncensored. Tonight's guest is running in the state of Washington. As you guys know, I am from Southwest Washington, and I'm really excited to have Park come in and talk to you guys about his platform. Not only is it awesome for those who are local to be able to hear what Park has to say, but for those across the nation, especially those in blue states and blue cities, this will resonate with you. Come on in, Park. Hello,
Well,
sir.
thank you. Thank you.
So happy to have you on.
I am so appreciative, Kristin, of being able to have the opportunity to come on. So thank you very much. Yes.
Absolutely. Well, as always, before somebody comes on, I go and read and want to make sure that that I really support what they're running on, especially right now. A lot of politicians have been coming on. And I really, not only did I really enjoy learning about you as an individual, but I really like what platform you're running on. And I do feel that you bring up some different elements, and we'll dive into those, than the rest of the candidates that we're hearing from. And so I want to go ahead and start with, can you let everybody know what you're running for? And let's just off the bat give your contact info, your website, so people can find you.
Thanks, Kristin. I am running for Legislative District 49, position number 1. And LD 49 basically encompasses Vancouver proper. So it goes all the way to Vancouver Lake, all the way to the Columbia River. A little bit, we just had redistricting. So it goes now a little bit east of 205, about 136. Those of you that are familiar with Vancouver, and as far north, and our northern boundary kind of shrunk as well, but a little bit south of Hazeldale. So
Okay.
Obviously a very dense population with a lot of people.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that is exciting. So, okay, I want to talk about something that is near and dear to your heart, and it affects anyone out there who pays taxes, and that is taxes and the gross overspending and misspending that is happening not only nationwide, but specifically in your home state of Washington. But first, let me share with everybody what my governor in the state of Oregon has recently spent tax dollars on. Park and I talked about this yesterday, and we both got a good laugh. She has put through the Menstruation Act, or the right to menstruate. I'm probably even saying that wrong. Right to menstruate. But anyways, basically what it is, you guys are going to just freak right now. What it is she's putting tampons in restrooms, boys and girls. And I'm talking K through college. There's tampons going to be made available in men's restrooms, the boys' restrooms, and the girls, whatever. But really, we're going to spend tax dollars on making sure that men and boys as young as kindergarten have access to tampons in their school bathrooms. Park, talk to me. What's going
I
on?
think this is an interesting thing. From a devil's advocate, yes, if certain person identifies as trans and feels that they need that, obviously there are some people who are biologically a little bit different. But it's interesting, Kristin. I talked with my doctor today, and I just said, what appalls me about this is, and she said, my doctor said, well, it should be available to everybody. I said two things. Number one, parents need to be talking to their children about their sexual identity. Even if your child is trans, I believe that parent needs to have that conversation, not the district, not the state,
Right.
not anybody else. Number one. Number two, I think this kind of bringing this in will actually ostracize those who are different, and will actually could very well play out to bullying and just make life miserable for them. So I'm not sure that it's an act that is based on pragmatism. It is just more based on how do we feel. relativism.
Right, right.
And relativism has seeped in, as you talk about so very eloquently on your show, has seeped in into all fabrics of our lives.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you, and I do feel a lot of things that politicians do, especially in blue cities, is for optics. Like,
Yes,
when she goes to bed at night, does she truly believe that K through 12 and college boys' restrooms need tampons? Probably not. Probably not. But she has to continue with the agenda. And so
correct.
here we see a gross misuse of tax dollars. But let's pivot to Washington State and talk to us about what's going on as concerning taxes in your neck of the woods.
Well, Kristin, Washington State is flush with money. We just passed our biennium budget back in the end of 1st of April, and we went to $56 billion. $56 billion. Now, I want to give you a little snippet of that budget. $16 billion was in transportation. Okay, so bridges, highways, and we all go, oh, that pothole that needs to get fixed. Well, what's interesting, Kristin, is when you look at the transportation dollars spent in the state of Washington, 8 of the largest transportation projects are in Pierce, King, and Thurston County.
Hmm.
Did Southwest Washington see any of that money? No. Did Spokane see any of that money? How about the little rural towns? They didn't see the money. Interesting thing, the Democrat senators were thinking, well, how can we get more money? See, Democrats are just as capitalistic as so-called Republicans. So the Democrats thought to themselves, and they made known, they said, because we have 5 big refineries north of Seattle, which provide a lot of fuel for the Western United States. So what the Senate Democrats said, we are going to put a surcharge on fuel to Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska.
Wow.
What do you think the response was from those governors?
Not well received.
No, absolutely not. And Kate Brown fired off, I'm sure, a lovely memo that just said, you better back off, Jack, because you will be in litigation. Washington will be in litigation forever. Oregon is not going to put up with it. Idaho pretty much said the same thing. Alaska even got even tougher, and they said, well, you know what? If you're going to do that to us, we're going to start doing things to you. And basically, it's called a tariff war. So now you have 3 states who are going to war against Washington. Actually, the Senate Democrats said, oh, well, gee, we didn't really think that one through.
Yeah.
Hello. Wow. You know, I'm not an accountant. I'm not sure if you're an accountant, but I mean, it just come on. Where these numbers that the Democrats are getting, we had a $15 billion revenue surplus. $15 billion. We had Senator Linda Wilson from Southwest Washington, from the believe the 17th. She said, can't we give some of that money back to the people? I mean, they're the ones out earning it. Democrat leadership said no. There was a freshman senator, one more slice of the pie here. A senator Republican said, you know what? Gas is extremely high. It's hurting our people. Washington State is one of the top 5 in the highest gas tax in the nation. He said, why can't we just give our people a 50-cent a gallon, like a Fred Meyer's reward? Let's give them 50 cents off per gallon until December. And it didn't even make it out of committee. Democrats would not let it out. So you look at a blue state such as ours and California and Oregon, where you have a one party that leads the judicial, the executive, and the legislative, and they all back each other up. And
Yep.
it is not for the people, I am sorry to say.
It is not.
So
You are correct. Well, I appreciate that, Park. We had a really good question come in, Drew. I'm not sure if you're able to pull up Alan's question. Why don't they care about really important topics like removing or not removing the 4 dams on the lower Snake River? Now, you and I, Park, we spoke about this briefly yesterday. What can you talk to Alan about and fill him in on?
So that's an interesting question. It goes back to a cyclical of salmon, and the salmon are good 1 year, maybe 2 years, and then they're not very good the next couple of years, and then they're really good. Who knows why? It is interesting that Senator Patty Murray and Jay Inslee both want to breach dams on the Snake River. Now, that would be like me going to your house and telling you how much water you can use, how many times you can flush the toilet. I can tell you that Governor, I believe it's Mike Ott in Idaho, is saying, keep your hands off my dam, or keep your damn hands off my dams. Because
where can I get some damn bait?
That's right. It just comes back to nobody is coming back and saying, why don't we breach the John Day Dam?
Right.
Why don't we breach the big dams on the Columbia? Because those dams provide an amazing amount of power source for the Western United States power grid. So it is, as you pointed out, it's an optics issue. And people go, oh, we're saving the environment. Technically, they have made so much millions of dollars to rehabilitate and make sure that the salmon are able to run like they're supposed to and make it home. So
right. Oh my God. All right, we have to do a shout out. I have Wade says, "What's up, players?" But Mayor Wade is the mayor of a small town in Iowa, Mayor Wade. So I have to give him a shout out.
nice to see you.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The overspending of taxes, the misallocation, it's disgusting. I know we spoke yesterday about how much, like you talk about this surplus, God forbid we try to give back to the people, right? No.
Absolutely.
Not going to do that.
Absolutely. Kristin, you know that, I don't know if you knew this, but Washington State is the #3 fastest growing state in homelessness. We follow California and we follow Texas. Now, this is under Democrat leadership since Gary Locke that this has happened. In Clark County, there are roughly 1,000 people who are homeless, or what we call unsheltered homeless. There are in the LD 49th, in my area in Vancouver, roughly 600. Here's an interesting fact, and this is one I think that I spoke with you yesterday, is that 20% of the homeless are families. And I suspect that when we talk about a family, we are talking about mothers with children.
Right.
Kristin, they are being forced to live in cars because a car offers safety. Sometimes these shelters don't offer safety. You don't know if your child is going to be molested by somebody, in the cot next to you.
Right.
So the mother's going, you know what? The car is where it's got to be. And I just watched a beautiful film, and this mother they're living in a Volvo station wagon. But what she had to do and her ingenuity, and I'm just going, this is unreal. This is unreal.
Right. Wade wants to know if we can sell the West Coast to the highest bidder. It's beautiful here. Yeah, I want to hear what you have to say.
as they said, when Russia was demanding Alaska, somebody on Facebook posted, "We'll give you Portland."
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, seriously,
we'll give you Portland.
You can have Portland and Los Angeles and Oakland and Sacramento
and Seattle.
Seattle can go in that bundle.
Right.
Oh man, might as well add in Eugene and Salem too. But yeah,
So, back to the homeless, we see it. We see it all over the place. So as the chair of our neighborhood association, I conducted a panel in February, this past February. And Kristin, I had 5 of our point people in the city who are working on homeless. It was really good. And it's a daunting and complex issue. That's for
right,
sure.
right,
Um, and you can't just say, well, they're all alcoholics or they're all schizophrenic.
right.
Each of the homeless have a different story. And I'm proud to say that in Vancouver, they are really working hard. Yes, they admitted. Ty Stober, city councilman, said, one of our efforts, it failed, and it failed miserably. I applauded him. And for standing up and saying, we the city failed. But we have to do better. We have to come up with a compassionate solution to help the homeless take these little baby steps. You can't just take them and put them in a box and say, okay, now you have a home, right?
Right, right.
Because there's so many issues. So I think that my opponent has not done a good job if she's allowed our state to become number 3. And then I think the third issue that's really, really important to me is our law enforcement are being handcuffed. Not
Yeah,
only are they being handcuffed by laws, by legislative laws, but they're being handcuffed financially. Clark County, where you grew up, Chuck Atkins, the sheriff, 2 months ago issued this statement. And the statement was pretty much to the point of, I do not have enough men and women to protect you against people who are going to trespass and minor crimes. We hear
right.
stories, and I'm sure you see it on Facebook. People are going into Fred Meyer's and they're just walking out with stuff. And
Yes.
and and Fred
Well,
Meyer's
Mark,
doesn't
I'm gonna
stop
tell
them.
you, my personal Fred Meyer, for those that don't live in a state with a Fred Meyer, you are missing out. I love Fred Meyers. But anyways, my local Fred Meyer in Clackamas County here, they have rearranged all these areas just in the recent months. And they also put in a service desk at the second entrance. And I was
Hmm.
speaking with one of the managers the other day, and I was like, I'm assuming this service desk is for reduction or hoping to reduce the amount of theft. And they were like, absolutely. And then the reconfiguring of the toy section, electronics, like they reconfigured all of it so it wasn't in the back corner because people are just walking out with
Yes.
armfuls of stuff. And this is in a nice area that's pretty far down, almost country. So it's really
Right.
interesting how it's spreaded or spreading out. But go ahead, Fred Meyer.
Well, I just think that, in Washington State, again, I understand, and the Raymond Floyd incident was egregious. It was tragic. It should never ever happen again. But you know what? That Raymond Floyd incident is
I,
not for
George,
every. Go. I'm sorry,
George, George.
George. Thank you.
Raymond. Who's
That
Raymond?
who knows who Raymond is? His cousin. He
Yeah.
was treated bad. He was treated badly too. No, George. My point being is, you cannot take an incident like that and say, now we're going to use that as a template for law in
Right.
our state. And that's exactly what happened. So we had a representative from Faircrest up in Washington who said, well, you know what? Our officers' use of force, they cannot touch anybody.
Right.
If they're going after them. Here's an interesting thought. If there was a runaway girl, right, and an officer saw her at, say, a gas station, he could not take her hand and put her in the back of the car. All he could do is talk to her.
Wow.
So what we're seeing now is a rise in property crime. And people say, well, we've had property crime. No, I was talking to somebody posted on Facebook again. An auto glass place 1 year ago only had to repair 20 auto windows. This year, it's 200.
Oh, I believe it.
200.
Absolutely.
And you know what? Cars are being stolen. It doesn't matter from middle class, upper class,
Right.
everybody's car is being stolen.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
our police officers, yes, they need to be held accountable without a doubt. I believe that we should have a citizen advisory committees who evaluate maybe a shooting or maybe a perceived alleged misappropriation of behavior. Yes, but we cannot handcuff our men and women who are out
No.
protecting us without doubt. Clark County, again, as you had about a week ago, candidate Shook, who
Yes.
said, you know what? We just don't have enough. We can't even compete with DPD, Vancouver Police Department. Vancouver Police Department starting at $56,000. Plus, they have a signing bonus, and Clark County sheriffs can't compete with that. And so,
Wow, that is
the
low.
county,
That is
the
low.
county, yeah, the county
Wow.
councilors are having to reevaluate. The issue is Clark County has been the bedroom community to Portland, right? And then all of a sudden they woke up and they are a city. They are a city. And the thing about waking up and realizing you are a city, you are Vancouver City. You are not Seattle. We are not Portland. We must distinctly be Vancouver.
Right.
And I had the opportunity yesterday to sit on a panel of citizens of Vancouver, and we interviewed 5 men who were being considered for chief of police for Vancouver. And one of the things that the reason you didn't see the riots in Clark County is because Clark County mayor, city council, and police all worked together, and they said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And what that candidate for chief said, the mayor and city council backed us up. And I
That's
don't
huge.
believe that you saw that in Portland.
No,
I
not
don't
at
believe you
all.
saw that in Portland.
A lot of people don't know in Portland, the mayor is actually the commissioner, the police commissioner for the Portland Police Bureau. And so definitely not there. I mean, yeah, so he plays like 2 roles. Whatever he
Right.
says goes. So the chief doesn't really get a say, and then the mayor is the one calling the shots, and
Right.
he's taking a knee along with everyone else. But no, that's huge. And I know that in Vancouver there was one shooting that got a little bit of light on it, but and there was maybe a little protesting, but it was nipped in the bud within hours. I was very impressed, and I'm like, wow, how you just have, like you're saying, you have to work together, and sometimes you have to work across
Absolutely.
party lines, and for
Absolutely.
for the common goal of safety, and it's just crazy to me, the difference that we saw in leadership. I'm glad that you sat on that board and that you were part of that conversation. That's incredibly important, and we need more
It is.
commonsensical thinkers. We have let's see here, Matt saying, I was born and raised in Washington. It's so sad how the left has destroyed Seattle. It used to be a great city, but now it's a dumpster fire. Yeah, it absolutely is.
And I
So many
think that
people have
brings me
left.
to a 4th topic, if we can address it real quick.
Yep.
It's the I-5 bridge.
Yes,
The
please
I-5
do.
bridge. Now, Washington has committed $1.6 billion to the project. Oregon, we're not sure if Oregon's committing any dollars. So maybe Oregon's not going to get a part of the bridge, going into them.
Interesting.
But one of the things that have always been a very sticky point for people of Vancouver and Southwest Washington is putting a TriMet train. And I know that when Biden was in town a couple of weeks ago, he's like, hey, we're gonna, federal government's gonna step up. And what happens, I believe, Kristin, is the lure of federal dollars to put something on people if they don't want it.
Right.
And I think that there was a poll that was just recently conducted. It was a 60% against, 40% for.
Mm,
And you and I talked about a scenario that could happen. Portland doesn't seem to have a good handle on mass rioting and all of these mass crowds. So
right.
what would happen if those people got on a TriMet train, crossed the I-5 bridge into downtown Portland, or downtown Vancouver,
Right.
and rioted and looted?
Oh,
And
absolutely. I don't think it's even a matter of if, it's a matter of when. It will, if the train is there and that capability is there to cross over, it will happen.
again, Vancouver has to be Vancouver. We are not Seattle. Yes, we are growing exponentially.
Right.
Um, and to be honest with you, why would I take a TriMet train into Portland, risk being shot? Another shooting today of
Yeah.
two African American women and their sisters, and one was shot and she died, and the one sister died. It was random. It was random. This is stupid. This is
Yeah. It
asinine.
is. It
And
is.
then you have, again, we don't have the ridership that are all flooding into Vancouver, or excuse
Right.
me, into Portland to work and then coming back home.
Right.
So it's just it's again, it's when federal dollars are just being spent willy-nilly and there's
Right.
no accountability. And this is why I'm running. This is why I'm running. Um, I started this path 20 years ago. I didn't wake up, a couple of weeks ago and read the newspaper, go, oh, somebody's got to do something about it. I
Mhm.
said, you know what? I started 20 years ago. I started as a secretary for our neighborhood association. I've been involved with my neighborhood association, 8,600 homes, for 20
Wow.
years. And I am now the current chair. I was the first dad to serve as a PTA president for 3 years, and we did awesome things for children and their teachers. Teachers work really hard, and that gave me that ability to see that. I've served on the Evergreen School District Foundation Board for 5 years and fundraising, and then the Vancouver Symphony. But the main thing is I have seen that people of Vancouver, when they get behind something, they really go, and
Yes.
watch out,
Right. No,
watch
that's
out.
really exciting. And Park, we have a few extra minutes. So I wanted to touch on education. I know yesterday we spoke briefly on this, and the state of Oregon, we're ranked 48 out of 50. I found out yesterday Washington State is
Mm.
45 out of 50. What are your thoughts on? I know you're already involved, but what can be done to raise these numbers in your area, but in Washington State?
You know what? I think you're seeing something happen. I don't know if it's happening in Oregon, but parents are getting fed up.
Hmm.
So we have had 40,000 students leave Washington schools. 40,000 students, Kristen. That means if you multiply that by about $18,000 per student, so it's $18,000 per student in King County. It's about 22,000. But anyway, that's a lot of money. Students are leaving.
Is
Parents
there a
are fed up.
breakdown on where they're going? Is it homeschool, private school, is charter?
Yes, most of them are going into a homeschool situation. I mean, give me a break. We just
That's what we're
homeschooled for
doing.
2 years,
That's
right?
what we're doing. I mean,
Yes.
indoctrination camps
Moms,
right here,
the kitchen table became the classroom, right?
right?
And so these mamas, they're upset. They're like,
Yep.
get my kid back to school. Did you know that Washington State was number 47 in getting kids back into school?
Oh, wow. No, I didn't realize
We
that.
waited that long. Why did we wait that long? Because the Washington Education Association Union is the powerhouse.
Hmm.
And they told Inslee, we're not going back.
Wow.
What, why? Why? So education, I think parents are fed up. They were fed up with the whole, yes, COVID is a horrible thing. There was a good response, but you know what? We're done with COVID. And,
Right.
and, and parents are going, you know what? Now I can educate my child the way I want to educate them.
Right,
And you know
right.
what? We're going to Disneyland, and they can still do their homework in Disneyland. You know, right? And so I think parents are
Well,
going, you
I
know
won't
what?
go to Disneyland, but I get what you're saying. I'm picking
you
up
can
what you're
go
putting
you can
down. I
go to
don't support
you can
Disney.
go to Silverwood over in
I'm like, let me
Idaho.
just tell people I don't support Disney on record. Okay, but yes,
Okay,
I know
go to
exactly what you're
Silverwood in
saying though. You can do
Idaho.
it from anywhere. You can do it from the
Anyway,
yeah.
right. I think that, you know what? So here, Evergreen School District just passed a levy. They had to do 2 levies because the first one failed. $53 million. When it came to light that the superintendent was making $310,000,
Oh yeah.
$310,000. And you're
Wow.
going, now wait a second. Let me ask you a question, Kristin. If your husband, I think he's a policeman, he was the chief, right? And let's say his police force, they're all eating donuts all the time and they're just having a good old time. And you know, there's break-ins, there's robberies, there's all this stuff, there's mayhem going on. And somebody says, well, you know, the police department, they get about a D plus in performance. Would your husband get to keep his job?
No,
Probably not.
no.
But
No, they're under a lot of scrutiny.
right, with education, we kind of just go, well, you know, they look like, the kids look like they're going into a school. I think I see a bus going over to the school. I see it
Yeah.
coming back. Washington State is number 45, as you noted. Evergreen and Vancouver School District with about 24,000 students each. They're at, we call it AYP, adequate yearly progress, is a D plus.
Wow.
A D plus. So children K through 5 are not able to do reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Wow.
But you know what? We are cramming down critical race theory down
I
their
was just
throat.
going to say, you know what they are doing? They're learning about how white people are the enemy and how Black
Yes,
Lives Matter movement and
yes,
how
yes,
they can choose their
yes,
gender, but
correct.
not learning the skills you need for a
And so you
workforce.
have CRT, you have the sex ed, comprehensive sex ed, and you know what? They're learning all about that. But you know what? Our kids, when it comes down to it, will not be competitive on the
Right?
world stage.
Right.
And that's what we, as parents, we are preparing our children to go out and face the world. They're
Exactly.
not going to be able to face the world.
Exactly.
And teen suicide, teen depression. I don't know if you've read these articles, but they are at an all-time high. At an all-time
I
high.
can only imagine. Absolutely. I've definitely heard it. We have Kevin. What did Kevin pop up and say? Evergreen was beginning for the progressives. The beginning for the progressives. So I believe it. I mean, it's just one of these
Yes.
things coming from this area. It's just wild how much change has taken place in the past few decades. But going back to, you know, the fact that children from our states specifically are not going to be competitive on the world stage. I mean, truly in a communist-esque world, which I do feel that's what we're marching towards, that's what they want. They want undereducated, dumbed down, sick people who are just going to be dependent on the government. They're not going to question things. They're not going to stand up and be physically capable to take them on. So ultimately, right now, with these incredibly low test scores and education just falling off the map, they are succeeding in their mission of crashing the education system in the United
Absolutely.
States. So
Absolutely.
I'm so glad
We're
that
going
there's
to the lowest common denominator, right?
right. Right. Well, I'm so glad there's someone like you that has an eye on it, because so many people don't realize they send their kids to school and day after day, and they don't realize what is happening big picture. All right, Park. Well, we got to cut
Absolutely.
this off. We could talk for hours. I've really enjoyed
Oh,
everything you have to
you're
say.
fun. You're
You're
absolutely
fun.
fun.
You're fun. We need to. I did tell you. I'm like, I want to get a drink with you for sure, and we'll smoke.
Well, yes, absolutely.
Oh,
No,
awesome.
thank you again so much. People can go on to vote4park.com. And so go on, take a look at what I'm about. Again, these elections are fueled I'm not fueled by a big corporation. My opponent is,
Right.
but I'm fueled by people like you. And so I just really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share my story and say, you know what, I am going to stand for the people of Washington. I
Amen.
promise I am going to
Amen.
stand for the people of Washington. And
I love
thank
it.
you.
They need you. We
Thank you.
need you. Thank you so much for coming on, and you have an awesome night. And I'm
Okay,
serious
you
about
as
that
well.
drink.
Okay, fantastic.
Take care.
Happy Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, Cinco de Mayo. Thank you. You too. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Ran a little bit over, but it was well worth it. After me, we have the Elsa show. So she used to have it called Blue Family Unity. We are transitioning into a new name, which is great because it's about her and her guests, etc. Also, don't forget that we are sponsored by Mike Lindell, My Pillow, and we have our own code that registers at right around 60% off. I've used it before. That is the legitimate percentage off. The code is RAM. So go check it out, you guys. And thank you so much. And we'll see you next Thursday.
Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Elsa Kurt Show. Let's get right into it. I have a great guest today. I'm really excited to introduce him to you. His name is Chris Strom, and we're going to be talking about his book, Brooklyn to Baghdad. How are you today, Chris?
I'm great, Elsa. How are you?
I am good. Thank you so much for doing this. I know you were double booked today and you squeezed me in, so much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so here's the thing. So I started reading your book last night. I confess, I have a to be read list, and it is so long. And the more interviews I do, the longer that list gets. So I'm about halfway through. And it is so good. It's so compelling and so interesting. I really didn't want to put it down last night. And one of the takeaways that I have for this is going to be maybe a surprising one for you. And I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I got to tell you, your wife, she's a rock star. She's really amazing. She's something else. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to have to make sure she doesn't see this interview. She's already getting a big head. It's too funny.
Yeah, she pretty much embodies everything that makes a great law enforcement spouse. Really, I mean, she's like the role model for it. Anybody that is new coming into our lifestyle and they want to know, what's it like? How do you live this lifestyle? And she could write the book.
Yeah, she's great. I mean, we're married 27 years. She is my rock. And she's always been supportive of me. There's been times when, like everything in life, you have a little failure, have a little setback, and my wife has always been there to just say, come on, push on. And so I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky to have her as my partner.
That's awesome. Yes, you are definitely one of the lucky ones to have a great partner like that, standing beside you. I don't like to say behind you, but beside you, right?
Absolutely. She supported me in all kinds of endeavors, and as you know from the book, you'll see she has quite a personality for someone for her size and stature.
Yeah, she is somebody you want on your side for sure. I can tell that already just from your description of her and the things that you said about her. I'm like, yeah, I want her on my team for sure.
Absolutely.
So before we get into the book, which I really want to talk about, I want to talk a little bit about your background, how you came to law enforcement, because you are you're now retired, of course, NYPD sergeant, and you were with the investigations division. Tell me exactly what.
The intelligence division. That's where I finished out my career with the NYPD, the last 5.5 years of my career. So, but like most people in the in police work, you don't start there. You have the, again, this might come as a shock to some folks in your audience. In the NYPD, you start out walking a footpost once you get out of the academy. I don't know if that happens in many police departments. I would imagine most police departments, depending on the size and the area and things like that, they don't even have foot patrol. It's just mobile patrol in one form or another. And then from that, I did regular patrol, anti-crime, street crime. I did some narcotics, and then eventually I get promoted to sergeant, and I move over to Brooklyn. I had been in Queens for 13 years. So it was pretty, it was pretty interesting, and I was very comfortable where I was in Queens. And then once I got to Brooklyn, I started doing narcotics works, and then eventually made my way into the intelligence division.
That's incredible. So, I mean, I know I cannot even imagine what it had to be like working in New York City, and just the nonstop adrenaline rushes. It had to be just insane. I can't even fathom, but I know from my husband, who worked, inner city for most of his career, and you guys love it. You guys love it, don't you?
Yeah, it is a love-hate relationship. I mean, first of all, the camaraderie that you experience, it could be in any police department. It doesn't have to be the NYPD. They are like your second family. And the people that I worked with, I mean, I talk to them to this day. I have pictures of them on my wall behind me. I mean, we just genuinely love each other and care about each other, and we check in with each other. So that's one aspect of it. Obviously, the excitement, if you like police work. I got to live out my fantasies and my dreams in the NYPD. I mean, pick a scene from any movie. I've pretty much been involved in that in some form or fashion, maybe more than I should have been. But it's a great career. It's different every day. I think one of the best things about New York is that there are so many different people that you come in contact with. So, I mean, pick a demographic, pick a group, race, religion, ethnicity. It's all there. And it's all little enclaves and little different, communities within communities and boroughs of themselves.
That's so cool. Now, did you know from a young age that that's what you wanted to do? Did you always know that policing was going to be in your field?
I think so. I grew up like most people, watching a lot of cop shows and movies, and I always had like an interest in it. I did serve 4 years in the Marine Corps, and after getting out of the Marine Corps, it just seemed like a natural transition. I was already kind of like in that mode, a kind of a semi-military type of mode. And but I remember, as a child going into the city and seeing cops and just thinking, wow, that would be so cool to be a cop in New York City. And thankfully, I was able to pass the test and actually get hired on as a cop.
And now you obviously developed some special skills to be able to interrogate people or question people. That's a skill in itself that I don't think everybody, not all cops are cut out to do exactly that, because there's so much nuance to that, to being able to read people the way that you're able to do. Was there training for that, or did that just kind of happen sort of by accident that you fell into that lane?
Well, it's a combination of training. There's some basic training that you get in the police department, but really the real training is real life experience. And there's a lot of failure before there's any success. And I have to be honest with you and your audience. I was a very good street cop. I loved living on the street. I loved the action. I loved the adrenaline. I loved all that about it. But I was a horrible communicator. I was not a good listener. So, typically I would make an arrest, and I would be processing. And again, people have no idea until you're actually in that position. There's probably about 30 separate pieces of paperwork that have to be filled out for each person that you arrest. And some of it has been streamlined now. It's with the advent of the computer, but initially it was all done by hand, and I'm left-handed, so it would take a long time just to process somebody. So while that's going on, simultaneously, the person that you have arrested is like, "Hey, officer, I want to talk to you. I want to give you some information." And this is the old Chris. I'd be like, "Listen, I'm very busy. Unless you have to use the bathroom or you're hungry or need some water, I'm really not interested." That was really my mindset.
Mhm.
Fast forward, I started working with some very gifted people that were great at interrogation. And I said, wow, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to take this experience of law enforcement to that level. And I was very blessed to be around some amazing people, gifted people, people that they write books about, their technical advisors on movie sets. My one really good best friend and dear friend and huge mentor is a friend of mine called Tommy Dades. I speak about him in my book. He's definitely in the acknowledgments of the book, and we're very close to this day, and we share experiences. And I have to tell you, going in the box, and meaning the interrogation room, or being able to do what they call the fishbowl, look at it remotely through a video and watch my friend Tommy in action. It is an art. It really, really is an art, and he's at a way different level than I am, way, way above me, head and shoulders above me.
That's so amazing. All of policing, I already know. I know very well that it's none of it that I could ever do because one, I'm too short tempered. I don't have the, everybody has this, people who are outside of our universe have this idea that, cops are like short tempered and quick to react and all these things. And they're actually the most, the good ones, of course, we're talking about. They're the most thoughtful, conscientious people that you could ever meet because their actions have so much consequence. They have, so, I'll speak for my husband and I probably can speak for you. It takes a lot to get you to a point where you have to have a physical reaction or anything like that because you're so hyper aware of everything. Somebody like me, I'm just reactive. You look at me wrong, I'm going to punch you in the face. I won't. I'm not going to do that. I'm not that bad. I'm giving everybody the wrong impression of me here. I'm not that violent, but I know I couldn't do that. And the interrogating, the questioning, no, I wouldn't even begin to know. I probably could not even read, body language, because that's a huge part of it too, right? Just reading their body language. If they're telling you, they don't know anything, but their gestures and their everything tells you otherwise. So what an incredible skill to have. Do you use that skill in your personal life too? Are you able to,
That's a great question. Unfortunately, I had this conversation with somebody not too long ago. It's a love-hate relationship with interrogation skill because you look at people, and if you're a Christian or a good person, not really supposed to judge people, and unfortunately I do. I cannot turn that off. I can't trade that skill set that took years to hone to just give it away. And again, if I had to go in an interrogation room now and do an interrogation, I would be rusty because it is a perishable skill. It's like anything else. It's like playing a sport in some aspects. If you haven't played whatever sport it is in a while, you're a little bit rusty. The fundamentals are there. You understand what you need to do, but you're like, wow, I'm really not as sharp. I'm not on top of my game. And there's a lot of things, like you say, body language is a huge part of it. You do a 5-minute psychological snapshot of somebody. Maybe you have, paperwork that suggests who this person is or what he's been involved in the past. But, with that, if you're going in there cold and you don't have that awareness to who this person is, it could be daunting. It could be very, very challenging.
Oh, I can only imagine. Now, fast forward with me a little bit. Take me through retirement from NYPD. What I really want to know is when you retired, in your mind, did you think, that's it, I'm done with law enforcement, I'm done with policing, I'm going to take a whole different track? Or did you know or feel like there was still more for you to do within law enforcement?
That's a great question, Elsa. I will tell you that I tried to convince myself I would never be involved in law enforcement again. I got involved in a business. I had moved from New York to Roanoke, Virginia, and I got involved in home remodeling business. And that relationship with the person I was involved with didn't last very long. And I saw what was going on in Iraq in terms of soldiers being killed, and I was getting frustrated and yelling at my TV and saying, what is this all about? And so, to answer your question, I think I was kidding myself because I don't think you ever, once you turn your uniform in and you hand in your gun and badge, so to speak, you never really stop being a police officer. I never stopped, even to this day when I'm in restaurants or airports and things like that. I'm always looking at people. So, But yeah, I think I tried to convince myself, as I said, but I think I knew in my heart of hearts I wasn't done yet.
Yeah, I understand that. I really do. You know, living this life as a spouse of a police officer, I get it. And by the way, your wife and I probably have in common that we've never sat facing the door ever. Safe guess. I'm guessing, but I feel like it's a safe guess.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
true. Very
yeah.
true.
So now how did you go from, I technically know, I'm kind of cheating a little bit, I know, because I read this part in the book, but I want you to share with the audience, how did you go from Roanoke to Baghdad?
Well, I had started applying for jobs, and I ended up getting a phone call from a recruiter, and I have a conversation with him, and he describes the job that because of what's going on in Iraq, they want to shift gears and do counterinsurgency, which up until that point really wasn't being done. And the idea was that I would provide guidance to some colonel at a brigade level of how to look at the insurgency from a law enforcement lens. And so he just said, "Is that something you're interested in?" And I'm like, "I'm definitely interested in it." So from that, I go to an onboarding and an orientation for a couple of weeks. And I'm there with about 35 other guys and girls. And they call me and two other people out of the classroom. And they said, "The program manager wants to talk to you." And I'm saying, in my life, in my past experience, this is not generally a good thing. You know, you're being plucked from the class. And I'm thinking, what did I do wrong or whatever? And I get in there, and now it goes from, he said, the program manager says, "Sit down, relax. We want to pitch a different program similar to what you're doing." So I went from being just a person that would be probably static on a base in Iraq giving advice to the colonel to, "We want to know if you'd be interested in being an interrogator at the point of capture of insurgents and going out on combat missions." And, I'm doing backflips in my mind of excitement. The adrenaline is just running rampant in my body. And I'm trying to express a very calm and serious demeanor and not, act like a kid and say, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Really?" So I said, "Yeah, I think I'd be interested in that," but I was blown away at the prospect of being able to have that opportunity.
That's amazing. Yeah, I can kind of picture it just going, "Yeah, sure, that sounds good." But inside you're like going crazy.
Exactly.
Oh, and then the whole training process that lasted longer than anticipated, right? Or the training process and just the anticipation of actually going overseas like that took longer than expected. And so now take me through getting there. I mean, just the whole experience. Now, when you were in the Marines, you did not deploy, right? You didn't go overseas then. So this was a new experience, right?
Well, I had been on several carriers, but it wasn't during a wartime. So I traveled all over the world. But yeah, to your point, no, never in a war zone, never,
Okay.
never living out, in 120-degree weather, day in and day out, in dusty climates and desert environments. No.
Although to your credit, New York City is a bit of a war zone, probably throughout.
Yeah, certainly a war zone now.
So
that's
yeah,
for certain.
so yeah, I mean, you definitely were in a war zone in some degree, just
Absolutely.
a different category, I guess. So the book is really fascinating in every way, but one of the things I see throughout it is that the level of frustration with the chains of command and all of that stuff. And I've heard stuff like that before. And so for you to see that firsthand, how challenging that was to get around and deal with, because you were getting a lot of resistance, correct? Because you were considered civilians. Correct?
Yeah, and just to give some context for your audience, Elsa, I was there with a team. This isn't the Chris Strom show. Chris Strom didn't solve the problems in Iraq. I worked with a group of very talented individuals, mostly from the Special Forces community, SEALs and Delta and Green Beret. One of the geniuses of the team, in fact, my book is dedicated in memory of my friend Matt Pacino. He was our intel officer, and he was hugely a big part of the team's success in terms of identifying actionable targets. But the level of frustration, again, who knew there'd be politics in the military? I mean, you know, people have career aspirations in the military, but there is. And one of the things that was happening, unfortunately, is, you know, as we're rounding up these targets, and just again for your audience's benefit, these are bomb makers, these are bomb placers, these are financiers, these are people in the Iraqi government that are all part of this insurgency that's killing soldiers. They're not shoplifters at Walmart. These are bad people. So as a course of rounding these people up, the colonel, who had already previously established a working relationship with some of these people in the Iraqi government, is now finding out that he's part of the insurgency. So you can imagine, if I'm typing up my report, which I did the interrogation and the human report, and that's being read in Washington, D.C. for the president's daily briefing, if that person, you know, and this colonel, and I'm just going to keep it with the colonel, is looking to get promoted and get his star, well, that's probably a detriment to his career path. So again, not by design, not intentional. That was one aspect of it. The other aspect is that we're rounding up these targets and we're confiscating tens of thousands of dollars in brand new $100 bills in serial number order. So clearly they didn't print this money. They didn't steal this money. Somebody gave them this money. So again, this is a bad guy who's killing soldiers, and the money is easily traceable. You can, you know, a first-year accountant student would be able to tell you who gave this money. Now, do I know specifically if that was the FBI that gave it to him, or the CIA, or the colonel himself? No, but they know, because when I record the serial numbers and it goes again into my report, people are anxious and upset about that.
Wow. Wow. And there's so much, and I really do, I highly recommend your book, because there's so much in there, so many things that I certainly would have never known, to just go on behind the scenes, just the behind the scenes, and everything that's actually happening there and in these circumstances is just mind-blowing to me. And you do such a beautiful job showing it and explaining it. It's so good. What was your biggest takeaway from your experience there? I mean, that might be there's probably so much, but what was your biggest takeaway from it?
Well, I mentioned before, you know, when you work in a police department, you're around amazing people and you're like a family. Well, you know, we started working with this one particular Army group called 122 TSC, which stands for Tactical Strike Team. And the guy that ran the team was this guy named Sergeant Dave Peluso, who I'm very close with to this day. We are like brothers. And it got to the point where the relationship with Sergeant Dave and his teammates, they wouldn't go out and action a target without us. That's how much trust and confidence we had in each other. And again, for your audience's benefit, you know, I'm 48 years old while this is happening. So I'm getting to look at it from the lens of somebody a little bit older, hopefully a little bit smarter and a little bit more mature. And the relationship with these young kids, and seeing, and they're not kids, they're men and women, but they're younger than me by many years, to see how they felt about themselves, about how they felt when they rounded up a bad guy that they knew killed one of their soldiers maybe a week or so before. That level of satisfaction and how they felt about themselves and how we felt together as a team was the most amazing experience of my life, really. Second to having my children, obviously, but it was amazing. And I try to explain it to people. I said, but it's almost like, you know, that expression, if you weren't there, you just can't understand. I'm telling you, it's amazing. Amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I get that. And my husband has said similar things, that, you know, you build these bonds and there's relationships with people that you otherwise in another lifetime or another part of your life would have never known. So you probably, you know, so for the rest of us, imagining that is almost impossible. You know, we can only imagine it in the context of like watching a movie or reading a book, to actually live it and experience it and build those kind of bonds and relationships almost out of thin air, really, you know, because you have to put that level of trust in these people who are actually strangers to you and who become essentially your family. So it's an experience that you're right, that you can describe, you can explain, but in order to truly understand it, you have to live it. So, but as an outsider, I certainly appreciate when, you know, people like you write books for us to be able to get a glimpse inside that experience and at least try to understand to some degree. It's amazing.
Yeah, you know, and one of the things, just again, to add some context to it, I mean, you know, everybody has seen like a movie where, you know, it's a police drama and there's an arrest made, and, you know, maybe after that, you know, the cops go out and they bend an elbow at some, you know, watering hole or something like that. You know, in Iraq, the soldiers don't have a watering hole, so to speak, but they go to the chow hall. So now we're online, you know, going through there, and, you know, maybe they want to sit with you, or they don't want to sit with you, but the communication of what just happened, what just transpired, what bad guy, what guy in the deck of cards that they rounded up, it spreads like wildfire on the base. It's not a very big base. I was on a base called Fob Falcon. So seeing that about, again, how they felt about themselves, how their peers outside of them from different units within this base are viewing them, you know, that's something that's very prideful too, that you get to watch and experience. And it's, again, when you go there, you know, the Army is there, you know, I don't know if it's changed, but they're generally there for at least a year. It's a 1-year commitment for them, sometimes even longer. So, you know, sometimes when you get there, they do mundane things like route clearance, which was clearly one of the biggest killers of soldiers, because they're driving at 5 miles an hour down some road, picking up garbage, which is another issue altogether. Here, they're actually making a difference, and they're not going to change the world. But, you know, just, again, for context for your audience, the area of operation that we worked in southern Baghdad, we went 60 days without a single IED event. No fatalities, nobody getting blown up or injured, which was unheard of prior to this team taking place, and this whole dynamic and relationship with Sergeant Dave and his group of soldiers.
Wow, that's amazing. That's incredible. Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about the process of writing this book. Was this for you, like, did you know when you wrote this that this was something you wanted to publish? Did it start off as something as like a catharsis to just put all the stories down? Did you have a plan for the book, like right from the beginning?
Well, I wouldn't say I had a plan, because I'm not a journalist by trade. I mean, I've written thousands of reports for the police department, and so I'd like to think I'm capable of writing, but I'm not a fiction writer. I can only write nonfiction, so I don't have a mind or the head for something like that. But I kind of like basically did it as a chronology, and then as I started getting into it, I'm like, this might be an interesting story to tell later on in life. So it was a combination. I would say initially probably not so much on the book front, but then as I started getting over there and seeing what was going on, I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to make this into a book, which is a whole other issue. Again, I didn't know anything about the literary world. I didn't know anything about agents and publishers and editors. And again, just as a footnote to this story, the book was originally 322 pages when it was first submitted. Then the lawyers got involved, and the editors got involved, and it whittled it down to 288 pages. So again, there's a lot of things in there that I wanted to say, and the lawyers would be like, "No, you probably wouldn't. It's probably not a good idea to say that, because there's other things like lawyers for these people that you might be speaking about that may find that not so favorable." So anyone that's thinking about writing a book, I did it, and I'm not any genius, but I will tell you, you get a lot of no's, and there's a lot of things that I learned along the process of writing this book and actually getting it published. And it's not self-published. My publisher is Chicago Review Press, and so it's been an experience, to say the least.
Oh yeah, yes. The whole literary world is a whole different beast, but yeah, the pride of accomplishment with that is pretty cool. And to be traditionally published is also very nice, and that makes you feel good too. But you're so right, you know, the whole process of it, the editorial process and the publishing process, everything about it is definitely quite a journey. So I'm glad you navigated it. That's pretty awesome, because it's a great product, and I hate to call it a product. It's a great book. A product sounds so cold when it's such a personal account, and just so well done too. And I do laugh when you say about the lawyers jumping in and saying you can't talk about this. Even with the names changed to protect the identities, they still, I guess it was still clear enough that they would know who they were if they saw it.
Yeah, it's and you have to have thick skin. I mean, you know,
Yes.
listen, you know, again, it's there is a lot of pride, as you say, involved in it. It's a feeling of accomplishment. I'm at an age in my life where I appreciate certain things that I never appreciated before. But certainly this was, again, it wasn't an overnight success, and you know, a lot of no's, and again, if you are not determined enough to do this, or if you can't take rejection, then it might not be a road that you want to go down. But I was just determined, and I wasn't going to give up. And I finally got fortunate enough that, you know, somebody actually signed me. But you get a lot of no's. So if you're sensitive, if you have that kind of a personality, then it might not be something you want to take on. But
Yes, I say that to people when they want to get on certain social media platforms and ask me about it. I say, well, be prepared, because it ain't pretty.
that's for certain.
Oh, Chris, tell everybody where they can find your book and find you. If you have a website, social media, all that good stuff, where can we find you and your book?
Yeah, well, the book is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If you go to a local bookstore and they don't have it, you can certainly request it. I'm on social media. I'm not an expert at social media. I'm more fun, unless it's something to do with promoting the book. I try to keep out of the politics. It's Brooklyn to Baghdad is my one account. I also have Christopher Strom as another Facebook account. I'm on Instagram at Brooklyn to Baghdad, and I'm on Twitter, although I really don't post much on Twitter. I comment on some things, but I'm on there as well. And if somebody Googles my name, Christopher Strom or NYPD Sergeant Christopher Strom, all kinds of information pops up in terms of interviews and podcasts and speaking availabilities and things.
Outstanding. Chris, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and talking with me and sharing your story. I appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you so much, Elsa. I appreciate you for having me on. Thank you.
My pleasure. Take care. All right, guys, there you have it. That was Chris Strom. He is the author of Brooklyn to Baghdad. It is well worth the read, and go check it out. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care. Hey, family, if you're looking for the perfect gift for the reader in your life, why not check out one of my books? They're all available on Amazon and most major online book retailers, as well as Elsa